Sisters and brothers, for the time is ours to share together this Lord's Day with your prayers and the Holy Spirit's help. I'd like to preach the 7th installment of this series from the title, A Major Hope. A Major Hope. In 1866, an English artist by the name of George Frederick Watts painted an oil paint portrait that would become greatly admired by both tried and true art collectors and by the common masses. This portrait that still endures today, as many reproductions of it are still being made, features a lone woman sitting atop a burning globe. The woman, though seated, is bent over. She is barefoot and she is blindfolded. And in her hand she holds a damaged lyre, a harp-like instrument with only one remaining string that she is somehow playing. The colors of the portrait are drab and depressing. The background is bleak and nearly blank, but yet the title of this painting is one word. That one word is hope. Since its original debut 151 years ago, this painting has inspired many, including U.S. presidents of the likes of Theodore Roosevelt, who displayed a copy at his Sagamore Hill home in New York, and one Barack Obama, who heard his former pastor, the Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright, preach a sermon inspired by a lecture on this painting, and after which he titled his landmark speech at the 2004 Democratic National Convention and his subsequent book, the New York Times bestseller, The Audacity of Hope. And even to my untrained eye, the painting is absolutely striking. And it evokes within the viewer a variety of thoughts. At first, it can seem as if the woman in the painting is foolish. After all, she is blindfolded, sitting atop a burning globe with a damaged lyre, which by all accounts, with only one string, cannot make real or at least good music. She is situated against a drab, bleak, nearly blank background. What in the world is going on here? This scene makes absolutely no sense. At first glance, her circumstances seem too bleak. Her world seems too troubled. Her resources seem too depleted. For her to sit there in torn rags, blindfolded, atop a burning globe, playing a one-stringed lyre. But if you sit with it, there's something there. To borrow Jeremiah Wright's word, there is an audacity there. To use my own word, there is a resistance there. The painting seems to be a declaration that despite the odds, despite her circumstances, despite what has happened to her, despite even what is available to her, there yet remains possibility. There yet remains potential. Because there remains these things, it is not a portrait of foolishness or mere optimism. It is truly a portrait of hope. And at first glance from the outside looking in at what I suspect may be the portrait of our own lives, we too may look foolish to others. We too may be found like that woman sitting atop a globe of burning colors, living in a world that is literally on fire. From forest fires to gunfire. Then over from the weariness that the violence and hate of the world begins. We, like a woman, are blindfolded. A vision of a higher plane is obscured from our sight. We, like a woman, are holding a damaged one-stringed lyre. Resources of all kinds, emotional, spiritual, financial, are nearly depleted. And we, like that woman, are situated against a bleak, nearly blank backdrop. may feel like it just won't get any better. Though we may be like this woman in this portrait, we are in good company this morning. The people in our text today, the people to whom the minor prophet Nahum was speaking, were in likewise a similar condition. Their world was on fire. They could not see their way out. They too had little to no resources. But just like that painting, if you sit with the text, despite what it looks like, despite what it seems like, there is something here. There is an audacity here. There is a resistance here. There is hope. And likewise, if you just sit with the circumstances of your life, if you just sit with the circumstances of our community, if you just sit with the circumstances of the world, there is still something there. The fact that you are still breathing, the fact that you got up, got showered, got dressed, and got to church early at 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning means that something is still there. Whether or not you realize it at first glance, there is an audacity in that. There is a resistance in that, and within you there is hope. Though the backdrop of your life, though the backdrop of this world may be bleak or nearly blank, in you, like the woman in the portrait, in you, like the people of Judah in the book of Nahum, in you, there is hope. So the question becomes this morning, in the midst of the circumstances, affairs, and situations of your life, in the midst of the circumstances, affairs, and situations of our world that would suggest otherwise, the question becomes, how then do we lay claim to this audacity? How then do we live in a resistant major hope? As we continue on in this 7th installment of our Minor Prophets Major Messages series, I think this minor prophet Nahum has a major message for us today. That if we are to live in a resistant hope, we must first resist the dominant report. The text says, "Behold on the mountains the feet of him who brings good tidings, who proclaims peace." Be clear, there were no good tidings to be brought to these Judeans. There was no peace in their world. These Judeans were living under Assyrian domination, and these Assyrians were known throughout the ancient world for being one of the most brutal empires ever in history. These Assyrians were horribly violent. They were vicious. They took people under their totalizing control by destroying, decimating, and desecrating them. These Assyrians were mean for meanness' sake. They were horribly wicked, and life under the Assyrians was nearly intolerable. You wouldn't even wish it on your worst enemy. But Nahum, this prophet of the Lord, rose up on the scene and prophesied that good news was coming. That peace was on the way. Now, under these conditions, any report that was good, any report of peace would have seemed completely ludicrous. Didn't Nahum see what was going on? Didn't Nahum see what the Assyrians were doing to them? Didn't he see how they were living? What good tidings could possibly come their way? But if we are to resist in major hope, if we are to lay claim to this audacity, they had to resist the dominant report. They had to believe the message that the prophet Nahum was bearing. They had to believe that there was more going on around them than what they could see. The Assyrians might have been large and in charge, but they had to believe that God was bigger than them. The same is true for us today. If we are to have Major Hope, we too must resist the dominant report. Whatever is going on in our lives, we have to believe that God is up to something. Amen. We have to believe that God is always up to more than we know. We have to believe that what we see going on around us is not the only thing that is going on around us. We have to believe that God is at work behind the scenes. There is more to this than we are privy to. Be clear, to resist the dominant report is not to dismiss the dominant report. Because let's face it, let's be real on a Sunday morning, the dominant report is real. What you're dealing with is real. What's going on in your job is real. What's going on in your house is real. What's going on in this world is real. But at the risk of sounding trite, but knowing in my heart that it's true, what's going on is real, and yet our God is real too. Though what may be going on in your life is bad, God is still good. God always provides a counter report. There is always another narrative. The dominant report may say violence is unending. But God's report says peace is coming. The dominant report may say that hate is increasing, but God's report says love still reigns. The dominant report may say injustice abounds, but God's report says justice will flow down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. The dominant report may say sickness is ravaging in your body, but God's report says, I am the God who healeth thee. Dominant report may say no, but God's report still says yes. So I have to ask you a question this morning, community. A question that they used to ask in my aunt's Pentecostal church growing up, and that question is, whose report will you believe? Yes, the dominant report is real, but it is not the only report. While I believe the dominant report, I do not base my life on it. It's contrary to what the dominant report would have you believe. The dominant report is not God. Dominant report is not fallible. The dominant report is not all powerful. The dominant report is not eternal. But our God is. And on that will I stake my claim. The enemy may be big, but my God is bigger. The situation might be strong, but my God is stronger. They may think that they can outsmart me, but my God is wiser. They may be powerful, but my God still holds all power in his hands. They may dominate the political landscape, and my life may seem like it's spinning out of control, but my God is still in control. If we are to have major hope, we must resist this dominant report. In doing so, secondly, we must restore the delivering religion. The text says in the B portion of verse 15, O Judah, keep your appointed feasts and perform your vows. And here it's important to note not only what was going on externally between Judah and Assyria, it's important to know what was also going on internally within Judah. And under the reign of King Josiah, during which Nahum was prophesying, a book had been found in the temple. It was a book that we find in our canon today by the name of Deuteronomy, which, as my Bible study saints will know, is a book about how the people of God are supposed to live in community, in relationship with God, and in relationship with others. because they did not have this book available to them, they had not been doing what this book told them to do. So upon finding and reading this book, King Josiah in 2 Kings 23 gathered all the leaders of Judah and Jerusalem. He reformed the entire nation. He tore down and destroyed all of the altars and shrines that were used in the worship of foreign and idol gods. This was both a religious and a political statement, because much of their deviating religious practices were of Assyrian origin. And to tear down Assyrian altars, to remove the vestiges of Assyrian religion, was both a restoration of the right worship of the one true living God who delivered them out of Egypt, and it was a revolt against Assyria, whose gods had essentially become their gods and perpetuated their own oppression. And if these Judeans were to have major hope, they had to restore their own delivering religion. They had to let go of those foreign idol gods. They had to return wholeheartedly to the one true and living God. They had to keep the Passover feast, the feast that reminded them that it was God who delivered their ancestors out of Egypt. It was this same God who would deliver them again from their enemies. The same is true for us. If we are to have major hope, we too must restore our own delivering religion. Don't be fooled. Everybody who says they're Christian ain't a Christian. Everything that says it's a Christian value isn't a Christian value. And notice the standard by which these ancient Judeans were to restore their religion. It had to include the public observance of the Passover. That feast that reminded them that God delivered them from slavery and oppression from under Pharaoh way back in Egypt. And why is this important? Well, it suggests to me two things. One, you can't have major hope and you can't get free if you're worshiping the enemy's God. After all, our Lord warned us that the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. You can't worship the empire and expect for God's kingdom to come. Secondly, it suggests to me that true religion is founded on the principles of divine liberation, miraculous deliverance, and godly freedom of both body and soul. So any religion that does not free people in both body and soul according to these standards in the text is no religion at all. If one's religion cannot free one, it can only free one from sin in their soul, but cannot free them from a sin of worldly oppressive systems, then it is no religion at all. If your religion can only free you to worship in this sanctuary, but cannot free you to walk safely on your street, then that is no religion at all. If your religion can only free you and yours, without any concern for me and mine, much less them and theirs, then that is no religion at all. Religion should be delivering. Religion should be liberating. Our religion should free us. It should not bind us. Religion should push us. It should not hinder us. Religion should drive us forward. It should not keep us docile. Religion should keep us focused. It should not make us complacent. Every now and then, church, we need to check our religion. Our religion is only good for Sunday morning. If it has nothing of relevance to say or to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, at all. If we are to have major hope, we must resist the dominant report, believe God at His word. We must restore the delivering religion, have a true religion that sets us free. Thirdly and finally, we must remember the divine reign. The text says at the end of verse 15, "For the wicked one shall no more pass through you. He is utterly cut off." God's word through the prophet Nahum spoke to their current needs. The wicked needed to stop oppressing them immediately. The wicked needed to stop taunting them immediately. The wicked needed to get out of the way and stay out of the way. This would have been the ultimate announcement to these ancient Judeans. The brutality of the Assyrians would be finally cut off. The evil that they were experiencing would be finally cut off. Their oppression that they were experiencing would be finally cut off. Because their God of their delivering religion was and still is a just God, who was going to bring all of their oppression and violence to an end. Notice in the text, he is prophesying. Nahum is prophesying. This is about the future. It hasn't happened yet. But he was saying what it was going to be. As the text says, he, the wicked, would be utterly cut off. And if we are to have major hope, we must believe beyond ourselves. We are to have major hope. We must envision a future that both our resistance and our religion produce for us. We must hope in a way that remembers our past, speaks to our present needs, and moves us forward toward the future. Yes. If we are to have major hope, we must be able to see what we cannot see just yet. With the eyes of faith, empowered by a major hope, we must see the coming divine reign of God that is coming to break in. In the midst of chaos, in the midst of confusion, in the midst of the constant struggle and drudge of life, we must remember the divine reign. Though, like that woman in the portrait with whom I shared with you at the beginning of this message, though we are blindfolded and bent over weary from the waves of the world, though we may be sitting atop a burning globe, we too, like her, must remember the divine reign. And though there may be only one string left on our lyre, we must resist in major hope. We must play our one-stringed lyre and make music in our heart anyway. The time for weeping is over. We must go back down to the river. Go back to the willows. And pick up our hearts there. And though it may not look like things are going to change, though our enemies rise up against us, we must sing that old song, "Let God arise, and his enemies be scattered." Let God arise, and his enemies be scattered. Let God arise, and his enemies be scattered. Let God arise. Though war may rage against us, we must sing, "Mine eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord. He is And be not